Hey everybody, this is Professor Diffley. This is Philosophy 255, Ethics in Social Work and Human Services. So this is Chapter 10, Lecture Video 5, the last lecture video for Chapter 10. I promise, and this one won't be as long. Again, I promise. I just didn't want to rush through these last few slides here. So we left off in Video 4. We were talking about competence. And all that. And again, remember, if you go back in these, we talked about competence and incompetence of colleagues, impairment of colleagues. Remember the two-step process. You talk to your colleague, give them a chance to self-correct. If that's not going to happen, you go. If they're not going to self-correct, then you go up and report to your supervisors, right? As long as you need to have direct knowledge that there's something wrong. And as long as it's feasible. If your colleague is a danger or poses a danger to themselves and others, that might, require you to skip that process of talking to them. But in most cases, you want to talk to them. So let's get in this. Unethical conduct of colleagues. Again, just like with impairment and incompetence, the same thing. You need to, overall in section 2.10, you take adequate measures to discourage, prevent, expose, correct the unethical conduct of colleagues, and even if it's, including unethical use of tech, that sort of thing. So, again, you need to try to prevent it. You shouldn't condone it. You need to discourage it, actively discourage it and prevent it, right? That's the opposite of condone. Expose it. So that means whistleblowing. You have to say something. Again, with this, you should, at first, if you think it's, you need to talk to your colleague first, right? If you think they're doing something unethical, give them a chance. Maybe they don't realize it. They have bad judgment that day, something like that. But give them a chance. In most cases, I mean, if they're, I'm trying to think of extreme cases. They're murdering people, or they're, I don't know, turning their clients into prostitutes, right? Pimping them out, something crazy like that, something bad. Then maybe you don't talk to them, right? It's really, really criminal. But you could mention to them, give them a chance. To self-correct and then make sure it doesn't happen again. Now, for how do you do this? Now, B talks about you need to be knowledgeable about established policies and procedures for handling unethical behaviors and things like that. Again, your companies, agencies will have a handbook on this. Again, usually it is that two-step process. But you also got to remember their federal, state, that's national, state, and local procedures for ethics complaints, which is often whistleblowing, things like that. They can often be done anonymously. There's often whistleblower protection laws. Again, whistleblowers are people who are calling out the unethical behavior or bad behavior that's going on behind closed doors, and they're making it public. They're exposing it so that someone sees it and can correct it, that sort of thing. One thing, I mentioned this before in whistleblowing, and that you really gotta consult an attorney before you're gonna do this. There will be ethics professionals. There'll be people like this do this. When you accuse someone of being unethical and you try to, this is a big deal, right? People can lose their jobs, go to jail, or worse, lose their license. Lots of bad stuff can happen here. You have to be, this is a serious charge. You have to be sure about it, and you need to follow the proper laws where applicable. Again, this is something you should never try to do on your own. You should seek out legal counsel and assistance before you do this on your own. Again, even though they're not supposed to retaliate against whistleblowers, it is hard to prove retaliation. They could just simply make your life hell coming into work every day. Would you even want to go back to a place like that? It's a very, very thick and tricky situation. So again, you need to expose unethical conduct. You just got to be careful in the way you do it, especially if you're blowing a whistle on a major institution or something like that. Again, you want to pay attention to laws on that one. So again, more with the unethical conduct. Again, so now this is more of what I was talking about before, where you have a colleague who is doing something wrong or you believe is unethical. Again, discuss, seek resolution. Here's where in 2.10c, you see the two-step process coming in. Seek resolution to the unethical behavior by discussing your concerns with a colleague when feasible, right? And when it's gonna actually produce something likely to be productive, right? Not just you're just talking to them and they're not gonna do anything about it. You're hoping that this will change it. So, but really, you want to seek resolution first. Give your colleague a chance to self-correct. Again, they may just not realize what they're doing is unethical. They might have no ill or malintent at all there. But if necessary, you got to go up the appropriate formal channels, right? State licensing board, regulatory body, National Ethics Committee, Professional Ethics Committee. States have, they have, you can put in license complaints, people who are licensed. You can do it against doctor. Pretty much anybody who's got a license for some sort of service there. Then you go up to your supervisors, that sort of thing is where we're going. And also you should also defend and assist colleagues who are unjustly charged with this, right? Just like you would want people to come to your defense, if you are charged with, acting unethically, but you're actually not doing anything wrong, you would want people to back you up. And so if they're unjustly charged, you have to back them up. Again, some people might look at certain situations and see it as unethical when it's really not. And that could be because the people don't understand the ethics, or maybe they have something out against your colleague, right, or you, and so they're trying to jam you up, so to speak, and get you in trouble. And so you want people to back you up and say, no, that they're not unethical. What they're doing is correct, that sort of thing. So, just like, we're supposed to give our colleagues a chance to self-correct, that's having their back, and we want them to have our backs when the time comes when we're not actually doing something wrong, but we're being charged with it. This is the last slide I'm adding in here. This was it's not specifically covered in the chapter, but it is something we need to talk about, especially nowadays. But even actually, this is relevant all the time. So this is a new one, section 6.03. You can see it here, right here, public emergency. So, right, yeah. So what are your duties as a social worker helping a professional during a public emergency? And so the question here is, what are your responsibilities, right, to say a social worker, to show up for work during a public emergency? Usually this has been the case of a natural disaster, think hurricane, things like that, tornadoes, earthquakes, now also in a pandemic, a national emergency, a public health emergency. What are your responsibilities? Well, in some places, and these are terms that we've all become familiar with now, essential services, where your job has deemed essential. These usually first responders, other things like that. But it's possible a social worker could be deemed this, right? But the general rule is that you and it's here in bold, social workers should provide appropriate professional services in public emergencies to the greatest extent possible. So you're expected to still do your job because you're in the helping professions there. Now, what it's going to require, right? It says greatest extent possible. So what is required will depend on the circumstances of the emergency. You're not required to get yourself killed to get to work, right? So that means there's flash floods and the road is washed out. You're not required to then try to ford that and die, that sort of thing. But you still have to, you can't just abandon your responsibilities. You saw this in the major hurricanes, the ones that hit Houston and Louisiana and other places. You see police and first responders and others who are out on the job helping people, even though their homes have been flooded and destroyed and things like that, right? You are there to serve, and that's going to be part of this as well. Again, you're not required to completely put your life on the line in the sense of, the only way you can get there is something that is sure to lead to death. But, remember, your job is to help, and a public emergency by its nature means that your skills and expertise can be and will be needed there. So what does that mean? Again, it will mean trying to provide counseling or help possibly to help your clients. And here, I've switched into presenter mode again because there's notes here I want you to see. And so, here are the examples. Many will have to, you may still have to work if there's hurricane, snowstorm, but What if you oversee a group home or do welfare checks? Someone's got to still tend to these places, to these facilities and care. You're still going to need to go in. Same thing in a public health emergency, a pandemic. I know people who are working in this and have to go out and make sure the homes are cleaned and make sure everybody's taken care of. That's something. And think about it, and I wrote it here in the notes. Indeed, many may be in the most vulnerable groups, your clients, that are going to need help, right? And they're going to need now more than ever someone to advocate them, someone to look out for them, push for their fair and equal treatment to make sure they get the resources they want. And that is what your job is all about. And so that means some of you may have to go out and interact with clients. May have to go out while others are told to shrink. For others, this has meant shifting treatment, right, and counseling sessions to virtual platforms, Zoom, but they're actually for more secure ones, like if you have telehealth, teleservices for medical doctors, psychological. People do this. Sometimes they've done it as a job in the past, just as a way to supplement their income or, as a first response, to people can reach out on crisis lines, helplines. But increasingly, this is becoming more and more the norm in the today, because we're heavily heavy technology use. So again, remember 6.03. 6.03 here, section, public emergencies. You're still required to provide your services in public emergencies to the greatest extent possible. Just because there's an emergency doesn't mean your responsibilities end. All right, well, that is it for the chapter 10, and that is the last lecture slide in there. All right, thank you.